Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Live with Little Data. I'm Edward, the host, and I'm here today with Rich and Matt from GetBetter. Welcome.
Hi, Ed. Nice to see you.
So, we obviously want to chat about. You guys are big into email marketing and Klaviyo. As we'll obviously talk a bit today about Klaviyo as a platform and Little Data's integration with Klaviyo. Perhaps could you give the listeners a bit of an intro to the agency, Rich?
Yeah, cool. So we're GetBetter. I founded us a little over 2 years ago off the back of working as a consultant and time again finding instances where Klaviyo was being underutilized or not even used at all in e-com brands. Started as a sort of content marketing agency because I wasn't quite brave enough to specialize. Within a few months, narrowed that right down to just email. And then about 14 months ago, triggered by going to Klaviyo London last year and hearing about everything on the roadmap and looking at, we still had some HubSpot, we still had some MailChimp clients, and I just decided to drill down and just be specifically Klaviyo. So that's where we've been since. We're a relatively small team. There's 8 of us now. We're split between sort of technical, content, and strategy. But servicing about 30 different brands on Klaviyo needs, varying from light touch, just support, up to full done for you service. We do operate within I call it the Klaviyo ecosystem. So sort of other apps like Octane AI, Recharge, which are very commonly used to sort of, plug more data in and obviously drive more recurring revenue in Klaviyo. And of course, more recently, Little Data.
Excellent. Are all the brands in the UK? Or
No, we are split between majority UK. The plan was never world domination, but I've realized that you can't really control the stream of partner introductions and word of mouth. And so I think we do have 5 brands now sort of split across the US.
Great. So, it's interesting you say that I didn't actually realize that you only so recently sort of doubled down on Klaviyo, but obviously it has, as you say, gained even more momentum the last year. And I had this brand this morning I was talking to. They're a sort of drinks brand doing about 500 orders a month on Shopify, and they were still using MailChimp. I say still, they were using MailChimp. So kind of what would you say to that sort of scale of brand? Why would they bother making the switch to Klaviyo?
I think, as you've just said there, you're still using MailChimp.
Yeah, cool.
I think as far as I can see, and I see a lot about it at the moment, MailChimp are looking to, maybe penetrate more in e-com. But for me, there wasn't a lot of movement and development with MailChimp. There were restrictions and things that I didn't like around building segmentations. You could only use so many rules, and data is really the key to CRM. And so, I think, look, I like having every single egg in the Klaviyo basket. Not totally. It doesn't keep me awake at night. I don't think Klaviyo is going anytime soon. And there are some really interesting developments from places like Yotpo at the moment that are kind of coming up on the rails. I think MailChimp is a good platform, but it's an accessible platform for everybody. It's a little bit like the WordPress woo kind of Shopify argument. If you said to me, you're in an elevator and I've got 10 seconds with you and you've got no time to tell me what you are or what you do, but you want to know what the best email platform to use is, I'd probably go MailChimp, or I'd probably go WordPress if it's a website. If you tell me even that you sell stuff online, I'm going Shopify Klaviyo because it's built for purpose. And in the same way, I wouldn't tell you to advertise your local service business, your locksmith business. I wouldn't use Klaviyo because there's not a lot of benefits.
I think it's the tight. I mean, we'll come on to, obviously there's some gaps where Little Data fills, but there is a tight data connection with Shopify and Klaviyo. So all of that stuff, tracking which products people have purchased, when they did purchase, that's all sort of solid. And I think if you're using MailChimp or another generic email platform, you're going to have to just do a lot more work to sort of plumb that in.
Yeah, the key to your drinks brand example is they're using Shopify. If your drinks brand example are you can't reveal the platform, or they're Magento, or they're BigCommerce and stuff, then it is really the strength of that integration with Shopify for me that fuels the power of Klaviyo.
Very good. So yeah, let's talk a bit about you've been trialing out little data with one of your brands for the last month. So Matt, perhaps you want to tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, we've been trialing the little data within one of our brands, and it's given us access to different data and a bit more data than what the Klaviyo integration kind of gives us. It's had many benefits with it.
So you're specifically, just to back up a bit for those that perhaps have been under a rock and haven't been listening to me the last few months. What we're doing is sending in an additional server side added to cart event, and also, I know you haven't used it yet, but also a kind of product viewed for the abandoned browse, and now a abandoned checkout event as well, a checkout started event.
I mean, we could back up even further, and what fundamentally is abandoned cart versus abandoned checkout and browse abandonment, I guess. So there's tiers. Basically, all are trying to recover lost revenue. So even if you've got a very good e-commerce conversion rate on your website and you're proudly sitting on 5, 6, or even 7%, there's still 93% or more people that visit the website that aren't finishing a purchase. Now, if you look at the wonderful little stat on Shopify, it will generally tell you that there's the breakdown of where people have added to cart, they've reached checkout, and then they've converted. And so what we're trying to do with the various levels of revenue recovery is try and boost those levels. So the one that everybody can do, and is very, very simple, it's part of the native integration on Shopify, is abandoned checkout. So that's when someone has reached all the way to the checkout and they've given you their email address. It's associated with it with an entire sort of cart. And so that's pretty straightforward.
Although confusingly, Klaviyo calls those template those abandoned carts. A lot of brands think they're doing abandoned cart when they're not.
So I guess even simpler, it's the name of the flow is really doesn't matter. It's the name of it's the trigger that matters. So an abandoned checkout version of abandoned cart is triggered by a checkout. So if someone starts a checkout, they've landed on the page and their email address has either been recognized from a previous visit, shop pay, or they've dropped it in. They haven't got to the point of subscribing, but they have given us the data. Important point we can come back to later on. The layer before that is all the people that don't make it to that checkout page, which is actually the majority, but have added item or items to their cart. So that is triggered by that event, the add to cart. And then browse abandonment is the layer underneath that, which is where people have simply viewed a product, and we can track those events to a degree, but haven't got as far as adding them to the cart. So the beauty, and I'll hand over to Matt to talk, because Matt's our technical lead, which is why he's here today to cover off where I'm no longer the most intelligent person in the business when it comes to these things, to cover off the technicalities. But the beauty of the little data connection is that the events that we are able to track are a little bit hazy when it comes to anything other than a checkout, because it relies on tracking, it relies on Shopify knowing what's going on. And crucially as well, they're outside of the normal integration. So we have to build add to cart events and things. The other thing that happens with those is, whereas an abandoned checkout comes as one event with everything very tidily packaged up into a checkout, the abandoned cart then gives us individual events. So if they've got 3 items, we get 3 individual events. And of course, you don't want to send 3 individual emails. So what we generally have to do is go with the first or last, which isn't always the most relevant product. So I'll let Matt explain a bit more about the beauty of how we're able to collect more of those in.
Sorry to interrupt you, Matt. Take it away.
That's all right. So yeah, the beauty of little data, as Rich kind of put it, with our current add to cart events, we can only kind of show the last product that's been added, which is usually the one with the lowest intent. Sometimes there's something that people use just to get over the line for free shipping. Sometimes this might be like a free product that you add yourself, and the only way you add it as a free product is through an add to cart event that you trigger yourself. These products haven't got high intent, so you can kind of see with some brands that you might have a low open rate or a low conversion rate. But with the little data, you can showcase all the products that have been added to the cart in the event, and it shows them the price, the product, the URL. You can build a much more dynamic and much more personal email to that person. So, I mean, for us, we've seen a 15% increase in the events itself. So now we're capturing 15% more recipients. Our placed order rate has increased by 1%, and that over a lot of recipients is obviously quite a fair amount. And even with our brand that we've tested ourselves, our AOV increased between 20 and 25%. So like these kind of figures, all just from showing them an entire cart instead of just their last added. And again, it comes down to that kind of intent to purchase.
Yeah.
Kind of seen a real uplift among our data, really.
I'm just going to show a comment from Matt, who said, I think nicely summarised what an abandoned cart is. View the product, then bug it off to Google to find it cheaper somewhere else. So, you know, I think there's that is the challenge, isn't it? That particularly, I mean, I think the cosmetic brands you're working for is in a reasonably competitive space, right? Where there are lots of sort of, you know, they don't have a globally unique product. So ultimately, people are quite price sensitive, and you know, if you can't get them to complete the cart, complete the purchase, then they are just going to find another store to buy it from, or you know, or actually not buy it online and just go and buy it from there.
Yeah, I mean, look, brand loyalty is difficult to come across,
Yeah.
you know, and especially in e-commerce, a lot of the instances, these will be like first-time purchases they've got a need. So, yeah, we all do it if we can find it cheaper or more convenient somewhere else. So, you know, abandoned carts and stuff are there to really mop that up.
Yeah.
You know, you may have found this cheaper, but here's like 10 reasons why buying from us is better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the most surprising one that we weren't maybe expecting was the uplift in AOV. But when you think about it, actually, if let's say we go with the last item that you've added to your cart, it might be the one that you've got least intent for. And so, you know, that's where we maybe pick up more placed orders because we're being more relevant and personalized.
Yeah.
If we go with the first item, then we might miss out on all of those other little things that you saw with the wonderful upsell apps that you've got at checkout and stuff.
Yeah.
If we just send them back to that first item. So yeah, being able to capture a fuller, and that AOV is not only 25% more than the other abandoned cart thread, it's 25% more than their average AOV site wide. So yeah, really good finding.
Yeah, I think I was really, just to pick up on Matt's point there, I think it's so interesting to say that, as you say, if you go to this, because it's cosmetics brand that, you know, typically quite a lot of small value items that they're buying as a collection of cosmetics. And as you say, it's very unlikely that the last thing they add to cart is the thing they actually came to the store for, the thing they really care about. That's much more likely to be in the first few items. The last few items, they might be effectively fillers. They're kind of, I'm here, might as well get that. So saying, hey, come back because you left that thing that you didn't really want, but you thought you might just get anyway. That's not a very compelling message. Whereas come back because you've got this whole basket and actually all look at all the items that you can just get in one click. That's a compelling message.
Yeah, absolutely. And where we've got the whole basket, if we want to incentivize people based on basket value, so let's say they are willing to spend, you know, double what our normal average order value is, or there's more of a sort of bounty on their head. So we might offer free shipping. We might offer, you know, a discount or a free gift or a free sample. So yeah, I think being able to see that sort of whole cart like you would do in an abandoned checkout environment has been really good.
So Matt, how would you, using little data as kind of added cart event, how would you be able to sort of segment or split the trigger by cart value?
You'd use like a trigger split.
Yeah.
Be basing it off the trigger, and then you'd select value as your main component, and then select the value you'd like to split from.
Yeah.
And then that way you'd be presented with two paths, a yes or no path. And then recipients who kind of are part of that rule, they'll go down the yes path. If they aren't, they'll go down the no path. I think that's the key thing, is you always double check your logic behind these things, because you can set it up, but then you might be incentivizing the wrong recipients.
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to get them to spend a bit more, it might not work out in your way. So you always got to double check and make sure that you understand triggers.
I guess the classic thing is you might want to split it by the free shipping threshold. So, you know, under the free shipping threshold, you're basically saying, hey, you know, come back and add one more thing where you can get free shipping. And over the free, you basically say, look, this is ready to go. You know, maybe even have a free discount, or whatever. And tell us a bit more about the stats you found, just in terms of because you've been running this alongside the, you know, the previous sort of added to carts campaigns you had set up. So what's the sort of uplift you're seeing?
Yeah, so we're still sort of in proof of concept. So we haven't moved everything over. I mean, the data is damning. I think I said to you a couple of weeks ago, can we just move it over now? And you said no, run it through to the end of the sort of test period. So we're doing so. But that's where Matt sort of quoted. So we're picking up 15% more events. So basically 15% more opportunities to rescue. So I think that's the first thing is, just that gap between where Shopify is feeding data through and where we thought it was pretty succinct. Actually, there might be even more, but there were 15% more opportunities. An increase of 1% in placed order rate. Now that's pretty big because placed order, especially where there's no incentive, which there isn't in this instance, placed order rates are pretty low still in a lot of abandoned cart flows. So that's impressive. And then, like we say, that the most impressive bit being that AOV increase of 25%. I think the other key stat to look out for as well, which I haven't got here, but Matt might be able to look at while we're chatting, is unsubscribe. So abandoned cart and these sort of flows I mentioned earlier, they may not have gotten to the point of being subscribed to receive an abandoned cart, but because of there being reasonable intent, it's fair game, as long as they've never unsubscribed, to contact them. We've got their email address and things. But because of that, you would generally see a bit of a spike in unsubscribes from these flows because people don't want emails,
Yeah, sure.
And sometimes I think that will probably be as well because they are the personalization is not as good.
Yeah.
And so what we've seen, great. So we've seen that the unsubscribes as well with the little data version have halved from the unsubscribes in the normal flow because it's more targeted. We are sending them all of the items, not just that last thing that they saw at checkout.
Yeah, that's super interesting. It validates what obviously I think at a high level, which is that if you do smarter, more personalized campaigns, people actually like. People don't just like marketing if it's on point. They just dislike stuff which is random and confusing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's three really awesome things. And then I think the final thing we're talking about is another brand you've got where there's sort of a very big split. They have some very high ticket sort of items and then some kind of low ticket cleaning products. And again, the ability to sort of segment or split the flows depending on whether they're actually trying to buy a high value item, for many thousands, or effectively a low value, even free item.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where even more personalization. So we're sort of very focused on the items and their prices and stuff. But then there's the whole email that wraps around it that we can personalize. Personalization doesn't just stop at hi, Edward. It really is everything in that email. Yeah. So these guys, from the look of in the background, you might even be a customer, but they sell and swimming pools and things. But they also obviously sell the consumables around that. So cleaning devices, chlorine, pH strips and things like that. And so again, there's very, very specific splits dependent on the sort of item. You wouldn't want to offer someone a Klarna option on a £27 tub of chlorine, but you definitely would on a £750 hot tub. And so again, in those instances that we keep referring to where someone has not got to checkout, but they might have looked at both or they might have added both to their cart, we kind of don't want to do either or. We want to be able to sort of send it to them as a fuller sort of picture. So that Klarna block can be dynamic based on again what they've been sort of viewing.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
you're only going to use Klarna if it's a sort of a serious purchase. You don't want to use Klarna for a $10 item.
Exactly.
And actually, there's one other thing in there that I think is also really important. Matt mentioned is that the brand also adds on sometimes some free gift type items. And so again, the last thing you want to be doing is retarget them based on a free gift, because you say that's confusing. They didn't even know that they were getting that thing. So saying, hey, you left this free thing in your basket, well, whatever. Yeah, but so the ability again, just based on our kind of item price field for in the event, to be able to say just filter that out of the flows, that seems quite important as well.
Yeah, that's something that Matt has to work quite hard on, is setting up all the different rules and triggers and stuff to make sure that they don't. So yeah, with that function, it definitely is making life a lot easier. Easier to manage for brands themselves. Like it's kind of okay for an agency. Like we can absolutely find ways around these things, but
Yeah.
there's so many instances where we take on an account whereby, you know, different strategies and different individuals, different agencies have layered on these different things and different ideas. And then you just got someone that's come in, or, you know, sometimes, you know, the intern or whatever that's been handed it and no idea how anything's working. So
Yeah.
I think from what I can see, the setup as well is so much simpler, because of the way in which.
I think that's a good point, because you say you can work around some of these rules, but what we're trying to do by just having all of the properties in that one trigger, all of the things that you might want to target, just trying to make it easy to set it up. Easy in terms of you don't need to be some sort of JavaScript wizard, but also easy in the sense that, as you say, someone else coming to your account can just go, oh, okay, I get what that's doing.
Yeah.
I think we have when back in the day when Little Data used to do some Google Manager setup and stuff, we used to have a similar thing where you'd take on these Google Tag Manager accounts, which were just crazy complex rules. And a lot of the time there was loads of broken stuff, but no one had noticed because of the convoluted logic. You know, there's a golden rule of coding. If it's just, you know, like even the best coders will miss stuff if it's sort of buried in complexity.
I'm just remembering like the first time that Matt got sight of all of the different events and things, and I can sort of liken it to the first time as a kid I went from having like just the 5 channels and we got Sky TV, and there was just suddenly all of these other things, like eyes just light up, and
we're cable TV for Klaviyo.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like, well, where to start? But I think the other important thing there is you just mentioned about we were talking about layering and things, and we were kind of laughing before about, you know, Shopify stores and actually, you know, Klaviyo itself and stuff. They're a bit like these things, you know, like smartphones and stuff, where we just layer and layer and layer and layer and add more apps and things. Very rarely do we take anything away. And every new bit of code, every new bit of, you know, JavaScript and everything like that you have to layer on just slows things down just a little. So it's a much cleaner way of doing things as well.
And that's just the inevitability. I think if you're building out a Klaviyo account, you're scaling, you've got to assume that you're not, you know, someone else is going to be taking on that account either internally or externally in another agency. So building stuff that only you can understand, again, it's sort of golden rule of coding, is that's just stuff, basically building stuff that has to be thrown away, because it's easier for someone else just to come in and start from scratch and trying to figure out what you were trying to do. So if it's all simple and consistent, then you're kind of building you're building longevity to the account.
It's also very static as well, you know, whereas everything that within Little Data is a lot more of, you know, a lot more dynamic. So it will change when things change, as opposed to something static that's been built, that then something else could be done in and around the checkout, or something else could be built somewhere else that then completely makes that trigger defunct. So, yeah.
There's one more interesting comment we got about, you know, but I think this is why, you know, kind of you guys are in a job really, is that, you know, that they're trying to interact, or particularly that last sort of few steps of the e-commerce journey is much harder than it is in a physical store, where you can judge, you know, by their demeanor, by what products they're browsing, by what they actually ask you, what their intent is. And the problem with, you know, with online trading is that you can't, the only way you have of judging is what data points you can gather about that user. Like, then you can't ask them, what is it, why is it you left, or what, you know, is it because we're out of stock, or is it because we'd have the right payment options for you? Or is it because actually you saw it cheaper elsewhere? I mean, you can do surveys and stuff, but in the moment, the only thing you can base on is what they were browsing, what they, you know, what they consider, what they didn't consider.
Yeah, I mean, no, you don't often see just abandoned trolleys and baskets full of stuff in supermarkets. I definitely remember my mother, though, would go around all 3 supermarkets because she would go and, like, you know, see where the deals were and things. And there's definitely habitual things. But I think the thing with the supermarket is convenience, because Google is there and it's at the sort of at your fingertips. It is convenient to go and shop around, but you can still, if you know, we've got a Sainsbury's right on our doorstep, but my fiance will drive the extra sort of mile and a half to Tesco's because she much prefers the layout. She much prefers the point system and the club card, and she finds that the offers are better. And I think, you know, Tesco does that. It does a sort of preemptive email each week to go, you know, these things are on offer, which it knows are things that are in our basket because of that club card. And it's all the same. It's UX. You know, if you can preempt these things with replenishment flows, you know, look at especially where there's items that are consumable like cosmetics, and kind of know what the average use time is or life of it in a home is, and time things well, then you kind of create that same convenient thing where people get to the point where, look, it might be a little bit more, but the experience has been great. And I kind of trust these guys because they've, I don't think an abandoned basket, I think there's a common misconception that it's all about incentivizing people and discounting and things. A lot of the time, it's just about building confidence. You know, we've saved these items for you. 24 hours later, don't do a discount.
Right? And modern is about distraction. You know, people don't necessarily leave because they intentionally found something else. They just got interrupted. And
I've got, the tabs on my iPhone. I've got 494 open tabs on my Safari. And if I go through them, a lot of them are things that I have put in my basket and then just thought, I like that. Nini Organics, Huel, Uplands, Bognor Regis. That was a whole different story. Richmond Events, they are all things that I've sort of seen or I've advertised or I've had a level of intent, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go and revisit that later. The only ones that have won through on those 494 tabs, 494 tabs, are, you've gone to see my text messages, are things that have followed up and have caught me and nurtured and been, sorry, Jazz, don't respect me less.
Come and close the tabs for you. Cheers, please. Now, I think the club card analogy is really interesting because you're right. That is very analogous to what you're doing with sort of better CRM data. And the challenge and what the latest trying to solve is that they're relatively small, although you have this audience on your mailing list, there are a relatively small number of those you can identify on your storefront. And the more of them you can basically, so we call it identity resolution, the ability to basically link that visit on your store to someone who's on your list. Because if you can do that, that's when you can get personal. And obviously there are a large number of users, the majority who you can't, and they're basically anonymous, and that's fine. You could target them via, Google ads or Meta ads or whatever. But the ones that you can identify and can link to an email address, then I think that's a powerful thing, and that's what we're doing here is enabling you to get personal with those customers.
But don't forget, and I don't think we've explored this yet, but there's, the paid media agency that work on the cosmetics firms ads. They use Klaviyo's integrations with Google and Facebook for exclusion and building audiences and things. So again, much, much richer data feeds everything. Data does just make everything better.
Actually, that is a super interesting point that, again, I think we miss in our product marketing, which is that if you, as you say, you build better profiles in Klaviyo, but then actually, and I think I'm right in saying that the Google Ads audience integration is their single most popular integration in Klaviyo. So the ability to then advertise to that audience basically increases. You've got bigger audience, bigger number you can advertise to in Google Ads. So, good. Thank you for flagging that one up. Now, finally, I know we're both going off to this Klaviyo partner event, Klaviyo London next week, K London as they call it, or KLDN. Quite excited about that. Is there anything particularly you're looking forward to?
I think just seeing the enormity of it. Each year it's either very clever marketing in terms of telling you that we're oversubscribed, but I do know that actually a lot of the Klaviyo staff themselves had to sacrifice their tickets to fit everyone in last year, and that felt like a big event. This year is even bigger. It's at the Queen Elizabeth II sort of centre, and I think 700 people. So I think just kind of seeing like-minded. I wasn't really all that out there. I was a bit of a hermit this time last year. I'd sort of suffering from sort of previous agency experiences and some poor mental health and things. And so it's really like probably the first or second thing that I'd ventured out to, but just met some fantastic people. yourself for one. I remember we sat
yes.
next to each other, and you had a Little Data t-shirt on. I don't know if it was that one. That one looks quite new. And you sort of said, so why aren't you using Little Data? And I said, do you plug into Klaviyo? And you said, well, no, we don't at the moment. Why would we do that? And I think, you know, I'm not saying I was responsible, but certainly was part of the conversation. Yeah, part of the conversations you were having. And so, yeah, I think, look, the content was good, but it's really about more just finding so many other people in the room with a sort of shared passion for Klaviyo. And I think that the partnership side of it, I think much like Shopify has done, Klaviyo as well is really sort of tapping into that sort of partners and bringing tech partners with agency partners and things. And so, yeah, it'll be a wonderful sort of day of content. Matt's coming with me. I was on my own last year, so Matt's joining me. I hear there's a little event the night before as well. Very, very exclusive event. But yeah, might have been able to bag myself a ticket to that.
Yeah. Well, we'll let you know in the post. But yeah, no, I think I'm excited about the. I think Klaviyo is at this really interesting point where it's still accessible and it's not so huge, you know, and they do a really great job. Of shout out to their European partnerships team, which I think is excellent at sort of building that community. But you know, it feels like some of the Shopify Unite conferences I was lucky to go to, you know, 6-7 years ago, where there was that sort of, you know, real sort of feeling we're in this fun new space together. And so I think they've almost taken on Shopify's mantle and sort of organizing those events, which is great. Shopify have dropped them entirely. And
two other big benefits as well. You don't need a visa or a passport, so there's no issues with that. And the
good comeback, Rich.
Like, I still haven't done my Klaviyo Lego kit that I got.
Oh yeah, I remember that. No, I did actually do that for my 4-year-old son. He made me do it.
My Klaviyo bottle, and I still have the flowery shirt and bucket hat as well over there. So yeah, looking forward to the swag.
Awesome. Well, you guys have been great guests. Thank you very much for sharing, and we will see you next week.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.